back. WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and WNST.net. It is an interesting week around here as the Ravens have won a massive game out in Oakland and now prepare for a very struggling version of the Chicago Bears and a somewhat struggling version of the Minnesota Vikings the following week. And then, of course, the Miami Dolphins on short rest here. It is an interesting time in the schedule for the Ravens, who last week looked dead in the water, to come back to life. And certainly the Chicago Bears looked a little dead in the water on Monday Night Football against the Vikings, debuting rookie quarterback Mitch Trubisky. Many of you know I spent an appreciable amount of time out in the Windy City at the turn of the century as a nationally syndicated host at 101 Sports and Sporting News Radio, and I got to know this guy. I knew of his legend for many years, not just through professional wrestling and all things theatrics out in the Chicago area, including the rock and roll business. He is a Chicago radio legend. He is my friend. You can follow him out on Twitter at Chester W. Kopic, as well as check Kopic out on Twitter. His new book on Otis, my main man Wilson, is out now. Check Kopic, the man, the myth, the legend. Boy, this is not a good version of the Bears right now. The Ravens better win this game on Sunday, right, Chet?
My gosh, Nancy, after an intro like that, you're hired. I want you to do my eulogy. Before we dig into the Bears and the Ravens coming up on Sunday, which I believe, by the way, will be a trap game for the Ravens. Now, that being said, I wanted to get your take on something because I thought about you when Roethlisberger said this past weekend that maybe he just doesn't have it anymore. I find it kind of interesting. Roethlisberger came into Chicago a couple of weeks back, looked horrible, looked pathetic, wasn't going through the progressions. He looked very old, which, as you know, as a quarterback is the worst thing you can possibly look. Then he goes out and he takes care of business against Baltimore. Then this past Sunday, he's humiliated. So I wanted to ask you, I mean, you've been following the AFC North for 100 years. Is Roethlisberger toast? If you were his best friend,
dude, he just beat us last week. You know what I'm saying? He beat us last week. Look, I think the thing with that guy, and having watched this over the course of time, he's an interesting cat because he's a very, very diva, drama-based guy, from all the injuries, from all the things. I don't know what else there is to say about him, from the motorcycle accident to the histrionics in the the back upstairs room in Milledgeville, Georgia, many years ago. I don't know what to make of him other than he's a snake in the grass for our organization because, if he wants to talk about how bad he was in 5 picks against Jacksonville, he came into Baltimore and got up for the game here 10 days ago, right? So I don't think he's done, but I do think that there's a dramatic part of him that, quite frankly, I'm glad Joe Flacco doesn't have. I mean, Joe's just not that guy, and Joe's never been that guy. And that being said, Joe looked like an old man running around in London. Joe looked like an old man against Roethlisberger last week, and Joe stepping up into the pocket and delivering the ball out in Oakland on Sunday. So, I mean, these quarterbacks, it's not even year to year what they've got left. It's like week to week, right? I mean, we saw Peyton Manning win a Super Bowl, and he couldn't break a pane of glass 2 years ago, right? I mean, Tom Brady's running around at 41, and everybody around here's got Flacco written off at 32. It is really a week-to-week bit. Jay Cutler's quarterbacking now, Chet. That's crazy, right?
Nancy, it's a very funny record. I mean, for example, look at the Chicago Bears, the once-feared monsters of the Midway. They no longer merit that phraseology, that tag. Why are they still the monsters of the Midway? Very simple. Bronco Nagurski, Dick Butkus, Walter Payton, Dan Hampton, Mongo McMichael, the Punky QB, Mama's Boy Otis, Wilbur Marshall. But, Nasty, some numbers that begin to emerge. You realize the last 39 times the Green Bay Packers and Chicago Bears have met, Green Bay has won 32 times. Almost unthinkable. Now, the ball club is going to come in Sunday to face the Ravens is banged up. Who's playing well right now for the Chicago Bears on defense? Leonard Floyd, second-year man, has begun to emerge. I think he's got all-pro, Pro Bowl type talent coming off the edge. McPhee looks pretty good. Akeem Hicks will give your offensive line some trouble. But Nasty, this defense doesn't force turnovers. It was 32nd in the last year in takeaways. I believe it's 32nd in the last right now in takeaways. It's just not the kind of defense that's going to make Joe Flacco cringe. As for the offense, hey, all things right now are about Mitch Trubisky, the kid from North Carolina. in the ball game the other night. He had his moments. He's got great acceleration. He's got a confidence about him. He's got an aura about him. He made a big mistake down the stretch when he got outguessed by the old Notre Damer, Harrison Smith, the D-back for the Vikings, and gave up a costly pick that led to the Vikings' game-winning field goal. But here's what's interesting about how Chicago operates, Nasty, and you know this from your years here with One-on-One and Sporting News Radio. Before Jay Cutler ever took a snap with the Chicago Bears, the media was calling him a franchise quarterback. Hello. Yesterday, I read the Chicago Tribune, David Hall, very respected journalist, referring to Mitch Trubisky as a future franchise quarterback. This son of a gun took his first live snaps last night. You know, if you're going to be a franchise quarterback, beat Green Bay 3 or 4 times, then we'll start talking about the franchise quarterback.
He is Chet Kopic. He is a Chicago sports radio legend. You can follow him out on Facebook, Twitter, and as he says, any damn place social media is served, Chet Kopic's on the scene there. Of course, been covering the Bears forever. I love that picture of you and Ditka out on the front of your page, and I know you just wrote a book on Otis Wilson as well, and with Otis Wilson on If These Walls Could Talk Chicago Bears. It's a series that's out there, stories from the Chicago Bears sideline, locker room, and press box. Makes a perfect gift for the holidays for the Chicago Bears fan in your life. And there are plenty of Bears fans, and the franchise quarterback thing, I think you're taking that sort of literally as though, like, will he change the franchise? I think it changes the franchise when you deal up, when you give away 4 draft picks, and you bring the kid in and you give him the money, because for the next 2, 3, 4 years, he is going to be the franchise quarterback, and they're going to rise or fall with him. I think the interesting thing there, and for any of these franchises that have this situation where they draft a guy and have a guy, and we saw the Eagles going through that last year. We've seen that in other places as well. Houston had that problem earlier in the year, and they've gone with Deshaun Watson, and that's worked out great. Dallas had that last year with Prescott coming in on the back end of Romo. The kid didn't look bad on Monday night, and I'll tell you this: he got out of the pocket. He had some vision to make some plays that, quite frankly, I don't think half the quarterbacks in the league right now make, because they wind up getting sacked in the middle of that pocket, and he's not going to have the best protection there. I don't think that's going to be the case.
Well, it's kind of interesting because, Nancy, going back to the phraseology franchise quarterback, it probably begins at Old Memorial Stadium with Johnny Unitas. He is the first guy I can ever recall being referred to as a franchise quarterback. Who have been franchise quarterbacks over the years? Joe Montana, Dan Marino, Tom Brady, I can go on and on. But the Chicago Bears have had, God only knows how many quarterbacks over the past 30 years. I mean, Nancy, we have trotted guys from Salvation Army soup kitchens out to play quarterback. I guess I just don't like the phraseology franchise quarterback. If you want to say starting quarterback, or he's going to be your regular, he's going to take the snaps, that's fine. But to me, franchise quarterback has a very special ring to it. When I think franchise quarterback, I think of Johnny U, I think of Montana, I think of Marino, I think of Brady, I think of Bradshaw. A kid who's played one game, in my opinion, has no right to be called or referred to as a franchise quarterback.
He's no Bob Avellini yet, is he?
Oh, my God. Oh, please, Nasty. You have no idea.
I got to be. He's a Maryland guy. He's a Maryland guy.
I was the public address announcer when Bob Avellini played for the Bears. And all I can say about my time behind the mic at Soldier Field is this. Nestor, I retired with the worst one-loss record of any PA announcer in Chicago Bears history.
Well, I'm not going to blame it on you, though, Chet. I mean, then Walter Payton showed up. You won a championship. You had a refrigerator.
Yeah.
And, I mean, look, we all go cyclical on this, right? And this is where I wanted to ask you, Chet, about Cutler and his malign nature and the body language. First off, are you shocked that he's back on a sideline playing football? I mean, I kind of am, right?
No, I'm really not. I mean, Nasty, when you stop and think about it, how many not only how many good quarterbacks are there in the National Football League? Maybe a dozen, maybe 15, something like that. I mean, Jay Cutler is always going to intrigue people. Tremendous arm, pretty good vision, but in the words of one National Football League scout who must remain nameless, Jay Cutler will always do one thing: break your heart. He'll do just enough to get you beat. I'm surprised that Miami signed him. Adam Gase was his coordinator briefly in Chicago, now the head coach with the Dolphins. So it seemed like it was kind of a natural marriage. The thing about Jay Cutler in Chicago, Nestor, is this: the Bears couldn't bring him back again this year. The negativity and the aura of dispiritedness that permeated Soldier Field when Cutler was in the lineup made this franchise seem like it was moribund, seemed like it was dead. So the team had to make a change. Now, here's the irony: if I had been pulling the trigger for the second overall pick after I made the move up, which Ryan Pace did, I would have taken the guy that Tom Thayer, offensive guard on the '85 Bears, wanted, who's now part of their radio broadcast team. I would have taken Deshaun Watson.
Well, there's certainly going to be a case made for Trubisky versus Watson, as there will be for Wentz and Goff and all the rest of the guys that come in one and hey, we're still comparing Manning and Leaf, right? 20 years later, I had Ryan Leaf stop by at the Super Bowl this year. He is Chet Kopic. He's our longtime friend. You can find him at Chester W. Kopic out on Facebook. Always great things to say about Chicago. A longtime Chicago sports radio legend as well as television out there. I got to ask you about John Fox and where is the franchise right now? I mean, obviously, Trubisky is the next great hope, franchise quarterback, whatever you're going to say, but where is the franchise from a coaching, personnel perspective, ownership perspective for stability in a year where, quite frankly, Chet, it looks like they're not going to get to 4 or 5 this year as far as wins, right?
No. I'm not saying the club is probably 3-13, maybe 4-12. Although, with progress from Trubisky, if they can stay reasonably healthy, maybe they win 5. They're going to be a trap game on everybody's schedule. Nobody's going to take them seriously. But looking at the big picture, the McCaskey family is a nice family. They're made up of decent people, but they're not football people. They have never been football people. They have no business getting involved making any type of decision involving personnel, play selection, or where you're going to put the down markers, for heaven's sakes. This franchise right now is in a bit of disarray. I mean, last night, for heaven's sakes, Nasty, you've played 4 exhibitions. You're in Game 5 of the regular season last night. The Bears come out of a timeout and get called for delay of game. That, my friend, is bad coaching. If you look at John Fox's 3-year record, you've got to blow him out at the end of this year. Now, who do you want? There's an interesting guy who I think would give the job consideration, even though he swears up and down, I'll never coach again. Bob Stoops is now living in Chicago, where he has property, lives on the Gold Coast, lives very fashionably. I would think he would be a very intriguing choice to be the next head coach of the Chicago Bears. But whatever the Bears do, Nasty, they've got to get the mentality back. This team gets pushed around too much. Again, on defense, it doesn't force turnovers. Hey, how many times did you hear people raving about Tariq Cohen during the preseason?
Well,
he's lost in space. He's the invisible man.
Running the ball is part of the O-line as well, but they started the season with Glennon. How were you on that, Check? I mean, did Trubisky come 5 weeks too late? I mean, you're comparing him to Deshaun Watson. The difference is Watson's been playing the last month.
Absolutely. Nasty. I think, Ryan Pace made one tactical vocal error. When he signed Glennon, who obviously was doing nothing more than keeping the seat warm for Mr. Trubisky, he said, this is Glennon's season. Wire to wire. This is our guy. You can't make a statement about a guy who thrown, 13 passes in 3 years? For heaven's sakes, Glennon looked so uncomfortable in the pocket, held the ball far too long, didn't see the field very well. And again, what was emerging was, with your fan base is, good God, this guy's worse than Jay Cutler.
He is. Chet Kopic, Chester Kopic out on Facebook as well. Tell me about your book here. And you've got such a rich history with the Bears, which is why I'm delighted to have you on here this week. But you've seen it all here for the better part of 50 years, right, Chet?
Right. This is my, matter of fact, Nancy, this is my 49th year of covering the Chicago Bears.
Wow.
Now, the book I noticed was a great deal of fun. I was approached by Triumph Books about, maybe a year and a half ago about writing a book on Otis. We've been friends since 1980. Went through the Super Bowl, the whole 9 yards. Otis is a great character. And Nancy, the book begins with his upbringing in Brownsville, Brooklyn, a very tough, mixed bag of people. And how about this? His neighbors who either lived in his building or lived adjacent to Otis Wilson in Brownsville, which, by the way, was a predominantly Jewish community until after World War II, when it began to have the migration of African Americans from the South. Bernard King, Eddie Mustafa Muhammad, Riddick Bowe, World B. Free, and Mike Tyson, all raised on the same block with Otis Wilson. And
probably Spike Lee not far away, too, right?
Pardon me?
Probably Spike Lee wasn't far away either from that crowd.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. He bears his soul about his dislike for Ditka. He bears his soul about what he believes to be the arrogance of Mike Singletary. It was really nasty. It was a lot of fun to write. It was really, I think I had as much fun writing this book as you had writing Purple Rain.
If these walls could talk, Chicago Bears, my man Chet Kopic is Chicago radio and television legend, joining us here on the eve of a Bears visit here to Baltimore. It's my birthday this weekend. Don't let the Bears come in here and wreck things on me, Chet, all right?
Don't worry about a thing. I'll tell you what, Nasty. Take the Ravens, lay the points, and bet the under.
Always with good advice. You've always given me good advice. Hey, man, I'm looking forward to seeing you next time I'm out in Chicago. It's always a pleasure.
You're rocking and rolling, man.
Stay in touch with us, brother.
Let's see a concert together.
I would love to do that. I almost came into Chicago a couple months ago to check out Mellencamp. I didn't make it there, but, it's winter time now. I don't come to Chicago in the winter, Chet. You know that, right? I mean, I go to Florida in the winter. It's my Venezuelan blood. You'll see me in the spring when the thaw comes or when the Cubs have another parade in a couple weeks, okay?
All right, my man.
See you soon.
Take care, Nasty. Great visiting with you.
You got it.
Bye-bye.
Chester Kopic, one of my favorite people literally on earth, and a former co-worker of mine, colleague of mine. Nice to say that because Chet, I don't want to say Chet invented sports radio, but Chet was among those who did invent sports radio back in the day in Chicago on that huge flamethrower out there and taking phone calls and doing all that stuff. Chet, not the first ever sports radio host, but in the top 10. Let's start with that. So great to have Chet on, who laid incredible groundwork for a guy like me to have a life like this, and I'm appreciative of that. The BuyAToyota.com audio vault is there for you 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn radio app. We do come in crystal clear from anywhere in the world. Our morning newspaper ships to your email inbox at 7 a.m. It's all brought to you by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com, where it's still $10 a month to get in the best shape of your life, guaranteed. Last but never least, breaking news happens first on our WNST text service. It's all brought to you by our friends at Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. And, of course, Dennis is here on Thursday from 3 until 5. It is the SSV on WNST. I am a very, very available individual everywhere social media is, just like Mr. Angelos in the offseason. Nasty at WNST.net finds me. Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Snapchat, Instagram, streaming live on our Facebook, as well as our YouTube WNSTV channel. Big thanks to everyone for throwing some love over to our beautiful new Kitty and all the folks at Be More Humane who allowed us to do that. And my birthday's this week, and we've got the Dundalk High Hall of Fame celebration and appreciation for all things Del Valle Avenue coming your way next week. It's a momentous month here at WNST.net. I am Nestor. We are WNST.net AM 1570 and WNST Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.